Alright everybody, welcome to another video of what I like to call, what I was originally going to call my massive Marvel the Marathon. I decided I'm going to ditch that. I'm instead calling this series The Road to Avengers Endgame. Now this is a series of reviews in which I'm pretty much going to be covering every single Marvel Cinematic Universe movie that all the way up till Endgame comes out. But I am going to be going a little bit out of order because I did Black Panther first because I was doing that as part of my Oscar rundown series. And later, and soon, like in the next week or two, you'll see a Captain Marvel review. By the time I'm recording this, the movie hasn't even come out in theaters yet, and I am planning on reviewing that soon. But for the moment, we are mainly going to be covering all the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies that have been released up to this point. I am going to be going, for the most part, sequentially. Like I said before, I already did Black Panther for my Oscar rundown, and Captain Marvel will be its own separate video. So, now, I'm actually a big fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as it was because of this movie that actually it got me interested in comic books to begin with, because the very first Marvel Cinematic Universe movie I ever saw was Guardians of the Galaxy, and I loved it. And I saw my second film was The Avengers. And I honestly had no idea they were referencing what they were talking about whatsoever, and it wasn't until I actually saw all the other movies before these, I'm like, oh, now I get it. And I've pretty much seen every single Marvel Cinematic Universe movie in the theater since Avengers Age of Ultron, except for Ant-Man and the Wasp, and that was because I simply didn't have the time to do so. I really wanted to do it, and I have seen it now, but I just hadn't had the time to do it. But I'm such a big fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe that, drumroll please, I actually have this collector's edition Blu-ray set that has all these really interesting props, has all the movies from Phase 1, from the first Iron Man all the way up to the first Avengers film, and a replica of the Tesseract in this replica briefcase that it came in, and it came with a ton of other bonus stuff too. And also, behind these stack of books here, I have, this is the Phase 2 collection, which includes all the movies from the Iron Man 3 all the way up to the first Ant-Man. And inside of this is actually supposed to be a prop of the Power Stone from Guardians of the Galaxy, the first one. But I only figured that maybe because, Endgame is going to be coming out in about less than 2 months now. I decided that maybe, hold on, I have to replace this here. I decided that I'm going to take this time to review every single Marvel Cinematic Universe movie that has come out. Pray for me, guys, because this is going to take a long while to do. And in order to make this go quicker, I decided that I'm going to include 2 movies together. So, first of all, I'm going to talk about Iron Man, because that's the movie that started it all. Now, what is the basic premise of Iron Man? It basically tells the origin story of Tony Stark. He was a cocky billionaire playboy who liked to industrialize weapons, but after he ended up getting shrapnel in his heart and he realized what the damage he was truly doing to the world, he decided that he was instead going to not destroy the world with his weapons, but protect it with the Iron Man suit. Now, we've seen many movies that have the Moses story, in which there's a guy at the top, he gets knocked down to the bottom, he realizes the error of his ways and not to be such a jerk. We've seen that many different times beforehand, but we've never quite seen it done in this way, in the fact that we've never seen a character like Tony Stark before on the big screen. Now, this is a really good superhero movie, and the main reason why this film works is because of Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. Talk about a comeback role. For the briefest while, Robert Downey Jr. was having a bit of a decline in his career, but when he got the role of Iron Man, he pretty much his popularity skyrocketed, and now he's pretty much the movie star that everybody wants to be. And he's pretty much one of those ideal casting choices for a character. It's like seeing Christopher Reeve as Superman, or Michael Keaton as Batman, or Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. It's like, no, that is not an actor. That is actually the superhero himself. Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man is one of the best comic book casting choices I have ever seen. And what I really like about this is the fact is that how he's surrounded in just so much of this technology. It's so cool to see him build his way from the ground up. And he actually does most of this by himself, because normally, you know, he would pretty much, you'd think he would have other people build it for him, but no, he relies on a lot of this by himself, because he realizes that if this tech got into the wrong hands, it would pretty much be terrible. And the person that is in the wrong hands is Obadiah Stane, played by Jeff Bridges. One of the many problems of the Marvel movies is that their villains aren't particularly strong. Jeff Bridges, he is a good actor. I love him in The Big Lebowski. I love him in the remake of True Grit back from 2010. He is a good actor, and so are a lot of the people that play these villains, like Tim Roth, which you're going to see later in The Incredible Hulk. Mickey Rourke in Iron Man 2. What other guys have we got? Let's see here. Hugo Weaving as the Red Skull. These are a lot of really, really, really good actors, but the purpose of these films is that they're not trying to develop the villains, they're trying to develop the main character. And from the main character, it's great. This is a really, really, really good superhero film. And the ending is actually really, really good too, because you've never really seen a superhero reveal his secret identity before. And then when Tony Stark just says, "I am Iron Man," to the whole world, that's insane. We've never really seen a superhero done something like this before. And this is also the first time that we ever got to see the appearance of Agent Phil Coulson, aka he's an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. S.H.I.E.L.D. is essentially a big, you know, espionage group who they pretty much oversee the world, and it's led by a guy named Nick Fury, played by Samuel L. Jackson. And of course, I have to talk about the post-credit scene. It ends with Tony Stark in his house, and then when he sees Nick Fury tells him, you know, "You're part of a bigger universe, Mr. Stark. You just don't know it yet." And when Tony asks who he is, he says, I'm Nick Fury, director of S.H.I.E.L.D. I would like to talk to you about the Avengers initiative." And this is essentially where the MCU began. So, Iron Man, great film, 9 out of 10. Now we move on to The Incredible Hulk. Now, 5 years prior to this movie, we had gotten a Hulk film before, but somehow it was able to take the story of a big green guy that smashes stuff boring. But this film, while it is slightly better than this version, it really isn't all that great. It's just okay. But I will give Marvel, the MCU, this. They've never had a bad movie. Sure, they've had a lot of meh or just plain okay films. But they've never truly had something like an X-Men Origins Wolverine. They've never had an Amazing Spider-Man 2. They've never had a Catwoman, a Green Lantern. They've never had a Batman and Robin. They've never had that. In fact, I actually probably think the weakest out of all of these movies is probably Thor: The Dark World, which we'll get to that when we get to that. But for the most part, The Incredible Hulk, it's probably in like the bottom 4 or 5 Marvel movies, I'd probably say. But what is the basic plot of this movie? First off, it starts out incredibly well. It starts out with this recap of the Hulk's origin story, and it does seem really, really interesting and really cool, as it almost sort of serves as sort of a recap of the first movie. And later on, we see that Bruce Banner, he's trying to cure himself of this disease, but we then get the main villain, Tim Roth, as the Abomination. You see, I actually thought his character was kind of interesting. While these villains are forgettable, they do have interesting backgrounds, because Tim Roth plays this character. In case you're wondering who Tim Roth is, he was in a lot of Quentin Tarantino films. He was in Reservoir Dogs. He was in Pulp Fiction. He's currently going to be in that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood film that Quentin Tarantino's doing. He was in a lot of stuff. And the thing is, he plays this character who is supposed to be the ideal soldier. He's supposed to be the head of everything. But he was getting older. Time was taking its toll on him, and he couldn't be that soldier anymore. So he's going to have any means necessary in order to do so. And I also want to point out that the reason why we haven't gotten this is the only Hulk solo film that we've gotten. You see, Marvel went bankrupt in the 90s, and they ended up having to sell the movie rights. This was why Sony was responsible for the Spider-Man movies. This is why 20th Century Fox made all the Fantastic Four and X-Men films. And this is why Universal Studios also helped make this movie. Because up until when Disney purchased Marvel in 2012, these movies were actually distributed by Paramount Pictures. And except for The Incredible Hulk, that happened to come out in 2000. Well, it came out the same year as Iron Man. I'm pretty sure it came like a month later. Like a month or two later. It was made by Universal. And Universal, they have the reason why we've seen Hulk in a ton of other movies, like the first two Avengers films, Thor Ragnarok, Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame. The reason being was because they had it in which you could be able to have him in other movies, but you couldn't make a movie about him. But, yeah. That's the reason why we haven't gotten a Hulk solo film since The Incredible Hulk. But the thing about this movie is that it just seems relatively okay. It's like, I thought Edward Norton was an okay choice for Bruce Banner. A lot of people really loved him in this role, but I just thought he was okay. I think a lot of the other actors, they try and do an okay job as well. The effects are okay. When you actually get to see the Hulk fight Abomination at the end and do see him smash stuff, it's fine. It's not great, but it could be a lot worse. But, yeah, I really don't feel like... I wanted to sort of lump these two together because I felt like I could talk a lot about the first Iron Man movie because there's so much I like about it. But with Incredible Hulk, I briefly wanted... It's sort of like that, why I've decided to combine Green Book and Vice and all those other movies together. It's like, I really don't feel like I'll have much to talk about one film, so that's why I decided to put it together with another film in one video. But yeah, and of course there is the mid or post credit scene. You think it's just gonna be some throwaway gag with General Ross, but then there's Robert Downey Jr. as Tony Stark, and he's talking to General Ross about the Avengers. Wait, what? This is actually really intriguing. We could see a movie in which Iron Man and Hulk could be in the same movie, and Captain America and Thor. This is insane. So, yeah. Ironically enough, while the movie itself is just okay, the best part about the movie was the opening credits and pretty much the scene that came after the credits. That is a bit weird saying that, but it is a bit true. So, yeah. With The Incredible Hulk, I'll give it a 6.5 out of 10. And I'm not going to be like, I remember I saw one person, when Infinity War came out, he ranked all the Marvel movies again, and he pretty much gave it like, this is like a 6.8 out of 10 or 7.9 out of 10. I'm not going to do that. Most of these movies are either going to range from 6 to 10 out of 10s. Well, one particularly I'm planning on giving a 10 out of 10, but I'll have more info on that later. Most of these are going to range from the 8s to the 9s. Some of them can go into the 7s, but hey. Yeah. So that pretty much just covers the first two movies of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Tune in next time where I talk about Iron Man 2 and Thor. And yeah, that pretty much, I'm just going to wrap it up here. So, tune in for more, because this is just the beginning. So stay tuned. And stay gold.